Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
And it's that dreaded time of year again. It is when the humidity starts to drop and that dry air starts to hit. That can impact so many aspects of our health when we think about breathing, when we think about our skin, but we also want to think about our hair. For many people, they will experience extensive seasonal hair loss during this time when we transition into fall and into winter. And it is because of that lack of humidity that the hair itself really starts to suffer. And then obviously we can make things worse by having things such as color treated hair and using heat on the hair itself. So via hair drying and using flat irons and curling irons. So what can we be doing? We have to think about how can we hydrate from the inside out as well as topically. What can we put directly onto the hair that does not contain chemicals that really allows for a nourishing effect? So that is what I want to talk about today, because this is something that's really common. A lot of times people will start to notice like their hair comes out in what you feel like is clumps during the fall and the winter, and you start to freak out a little bit and start to panic and go, what is going on? Why am I losing so much hair? And we have to understand the actual structure of the hair and also understand the stress that the hair itself actually goes through. So I am Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, and we want to talk about shedding hair, dry hair, having flyaways, all of these things that we know can impact the way that we perceive our overall health. And oftentimes when people start to lose hair, that's what they think is, oh gosh, is something wrong with me internally? And in a sense, we can say, yes, we do not have the right nutrients at a high enough amount to support the structural foundation of the hair. And the hair itself contains two different structures. We have the hair follicle itself, so that's the bulb, and that's the living part that's underneath the actual scalp. And then we have the hair shaft, and that's the non-living part, and that's what we actually perceive as the hair. Now, there are many different components to the hair shaft that helps to make hair strong and flexible. And we can look at things like keratin, for example. We know this makes a big impact. Now, when we start to strip away a lot of the humidity, that can impact that keratin. So we have to think to ourselves, what should we be doing? So from the inside, what can we do? We want to make sure that we are focusing in on nutrients that we know have hydrating properties. So when we talk about hydrating properties, we want to think about things that are oil-based. So what are oil-based nutrients that we want to incorporate into our diet? So we're talking about the foods that we're eating, but also in terms of supplementation. Well, we want to talk about omega-3 fatty acids. So things like fish oil, flaxseed are always going to be beneficial. Incorporating those fatty fish into your diet, things like salmon, for example, very beneficial. We want to look at other very key and critical oils. We look at our fat-soluble vitamins such as tocotrienols, that very powerful form of vitamin E, which not only helps to support in terms of its antioxidant properties, in terms of fending off oxidative stress that can damage the hair itself, but it also really helps with that nourishment from the inside out, allowing through that bulb and into the hair shaft that hydrating property. So tocotrienols, which have actually been studied in clinical trials to be shown to be very beneficial when it comes to hair growth and promoting healthy hair. So tocotrienols is a nice thing to have on board during this time of year, along with bumping up the amount of omega-3s that you take in terms of supplementation. So getting adequate amounts, not only from your diet, but also in terms of supplementation. So maybe right now you take one fish oil per day. Well, maybe during the fall and winter months, it would be advantageous to take 2. Same thing when we look at flaxseed. Maybe you're doing 1 scoop per day. Maybe during the fall and the winter months, it would be advantageous to do 2 scoops of flaxseed. So these are things that we definitely know, but we have to think about other ways in which we actually damage the hair. We know the hair itself is very porous, and we have this fat coated membrane that prevents the hair itself from a lot of the damage. However, when we have a loss of that fatty layer on the outside of the hair, this is when the hair then becomes incredibly prone to more extensive damage. So when we talk about the exposure to colorants and the chemicals that are used to dye your hair, when we talk about the heat, the high heat exposure from hair dryers, from flat irons, from curling irons, this can do a significant amount of damage. And then we add in the fact that the air itself, the air that we are living in, is very dry during the fall and the winter. So this can allow that hair shaft itself to become very fragile, and it makes it more prone to breaking and to splitting. And this is why you can look and say, gosh, the ends of my hair seem to be much more dry during the winter, or as I brush my hair, I feel like I'm losing a lot more. And that is because of that change to the texture, and it leads to that actual breakage. And this is really quite problematic. So what are some of the things that we can be doing? Well, we want to think about the natural ways without adding insult to injury. So remember, we don't want to add more chemicals to the hair that the hair once again has to absorb in and deal with, which can create more damage. So we want to think about things that are natural, things that come from nature that we know have this incredibly nourishing effect. So we think about things like coconut oil, for example. We look at olive oil. These are things that we know allow that hair shaft to take in those very powerful oils and allow for that rehydration. We can look at collagen. Remember, we talked about the keratin being part of that structural component, but collagen as well. So to have hydrolyzed collagen, and this is key. So during the fall and winter, we want to make sure we're not only utilizing hydrolyzed collagen internally via taking something like collagen HX or Collagex HA or the collagen tablets, we also want to topically be able to apply hydrolyzed collagen. Same thing when we look at those tocotrienols. Not only do we want to incorporate orally taking in the tocotrienol with pine bark extract, but we also want to topically be able to apply those powerful vitamin E components. So how do we do this? Well, we have this really great formulation. It is our hair repair treatment mask. And this is a really deep conditioning treatment for dry and damaged hair. And we know during the fall and winter, people are more prone to the drying and to the damage of the hair. Now, we don't just stop with the hydrolyzed collagen, the tocotrienols, and the coconut oil and the olive oil. We also have shea butter in this. We have B vitamins. So when we look at pantanoic acid, so it has vitamin B5 in that. We also have in this wonderful herbal extracts such as rosemary and nettle and sage, lemongrass oil, all of these things coming from nature that help to support not only the hair shaft, but also deep down and looking at the bulb itself. So people are coming out of the summer months, or maybe you had more exposure to the sun, which we know can damage, the UV can damage. We know all of the ways that things within our environment can damage and dry out the hair. So we want to be able to use things from nature to combat that or to mitigate that. So this is really important. But there's also something that's really cool within the hair repair treatment, and that is egg oil. So eggs are an incredibly rich source of all different nutrients that are required for the health of the hair. So when we look at all of the wide spectrum of vitamins and minerals that are contained within eggs, this is really important. And the egg oil itself allows for this key way to really hydrate the hair. And this has been used for hundreds of years. I mean, you can go all the way back to Greek times where they were looking at egg oil as a treatment for different hair disorders, and how they found that after applying egg oil, this really allowed the hair to kind of bounce back, have this revival, one could say. And you think about what is contained within the egg yolk oil itself. You have this really broad spectrum of these bioactive compounds, things like omega-3 fatty acids, omega-6 fatty acids, these powerful antioxidants. There are things such as carotenoids, lutein, and zeaxanthin that work at a really finite cellular level to fend off those free radicals. So the more we can fend off the free radicals, at the same time use those essential fatty acids that are derived from the egg oil, this leads to that heightened ability to be able to allow the hair to feel much more nourished. And it's not only the feeling, it's the actual being of the hair. Because when you are applying the hair repair treatment mask and you massage it onto the scalp and into the hair itself, and you leave it on for a good 15-20 minutes, and do this a couple of times during the week, during the fall and the winter, you're going to see a remarkable difference. And having all these natural herbs, the lemongrass that's in that really allows for this wonderful aroma that will stay within the hair shaft itself. And remember, this does not have things like alcohol that are going to be drying to the hair. It does no parabens, so none of the weird synthetic waxes that you are applying to the hair. There's no petroleum, there's no colors in this. We are not adding additional things into this formulation that can further damage the hair. What we're trying to do is repair that damage that has been brought on because of, like I said, coloring your hair, going in and having your hair dyed within a salon. And this is something, just a point to make as well, that I always like to try to stress to people. If you are going to be getting your hair colored, highlighted, anything like that, try and find a salon that uses organic plant-based colorants. So if you are going to be coloring your hair, try and use things that are coming from natural sources. Once again, it is really amazing what nature can actually provide us when it comes to hair. And we don't have to use all of these chemicals. It is really unnecessary, and it is so incredibly damaging. When you think about it, okay, avocado, which we know is just packed with, once again, powerful nutrients, these healthy fats, these proteins, these vitamins and minerals, which is why it's considered to be a superfood. This is in the hair repair treatment mask. So when we talk about ways that we can support the health of the hair, topically as well as internally, there are so many things. I mean, think about some of the things that I just mentioned. The avocado, we talk about having things in here such as egg, having olive oil. I mean, these are things that we can also incorporate into our diet. So we have a way to target the health of the hair both internally, so hydrating from the inside out, as well as topically. And when you start to see that difference, when you see the shift and you say, wow, starting to take tocotrienols on a regular basis as part of my supplementation routine, and then using the hair repair treatment mask that also contains tocotrienols, I can really see this true difference in terms of the health of my hair. Maybe you start to incorporate avocado into your diet a few times out of the week, and then you're using the hair repair treatment mask that also has that avocado, and you start to see that difference. So remember, it's a 2-point routine that we want to do. First point, we want to hydrate from the inside out. Second point, we want to hydrate from the outside, actually putting these wonderful nutrients coming from nature directly onto the hair. And it is just amazing to me when you go into just a typical pharmacy and you're looking at things, for hair repair and for people who have excessively dry hair, dry, brittle, breaking hair. And if you were to just look at the label and you see just chemical after chemical after chemical, you have to sit there for a moment and say, okay, so my hair's already damaged. Now I'm going to be putting more chemicals onto my hair. How is this helping? And this is the point that I always like to bring across is nature provides us with so many powerful foods and nutrients that we can utilize to optimize our overall health. And we see this. This is why that Mediterranean diet has been shown and proved in clinical trial after clinical trial for overall health and wellness. When we look at cardiovascular health, when we look at bone health, when we look at brain health, when we look at liver health, the ability for the body to detoxify, having those foods on board makes a huge difference. Now, when we take those same foods and we bottle them up and we say, okay, now let's use this and let's put that on top of our head for the health of the hair, you can see that correlation. So I just like people to be aware of this because this is a common thing that happens during the fall. And people, like I said, they start to kind of panic a little bit. You get into midway through the winter and you're going, oh my gosh, my hair is just coming out in droves. What can I do? And we don't want to continuously damage the hair. We want to be able to support the hair. We don't want to see continual splitting and breaking of the hair. We want to use the things like hydrolyzed collagen to help with that structural component. We want to use things like the tocotrienols that we know nourish both internally as well as externally. These are the points that you want to take with you into these drier months to really give your hair that opportunity to make it through that low humidity environment without making things worse. So that is all that I have for you for today. I just want to thank you so much for tuning in to the Invite Health podcast. Remember, you can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts or by visiting invitehealth.com/podcast. Now, do make sure that you subscribe and leave us a review. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. And we will see you next time for another episode of the Invite Health podcast.